brings the past alive for us. And in particular, the kinds of symbols that people use to represent what values they hold dear and what they hold important to them. And in this, it strikes me that Patrick Donmoyer is joining some pretty elevated company, because, you know, I think of the teams of scholars who worked for decades trying to decipher the Maya glyphs, or, you know, scholars who have worked for centuries trying to understand what is meant in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. And here we are, right in our own backyard, and we have these symbols that are on barns and on other kinds of buildings, and we really don't know exactly what they're intended to signify.
Some of the barns that were set off on long lanes that you might not be able to access from public roads. But the interesting thing that occurred was that I found approximately 450 decorated barns. And prior to that time, some other folks who had written on the subject estimated that there were only about 200 in Berks County. And they even said that maybe only just a couple more than that outside of Berks County. Now, for those of you who, of course, are living here in Lebanon County, you'll find that these types of designs are a little bit more rare in this area. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that might be, because, of course, there's a variety of different reasons that may undergird that. In Berks County, we're really the epicenter of this particular tradition. And again, you've heard previously mentioned that there are several different camps of thought surrounding the origins and the meanings of these particular designs, whether they're just simply for decoration, whether there was some sort of protective capacity, or if they also perhaps have either religious connotations, and of course what sorts of cultural connotations they hold. One of the things I was so fascinated about was the idea that there was such a diversity of these designs. When I began the process of documenting these, people thought I was crazy because I had 3.5 months to drive all the agricultural roads in Berks County and find as many as I could. And I was told I probably wouldn't be able to finish the project, but I did, because I have a lot of energy and a lot of motivation for this particular project. And as you can see, there's a variety of designs all throughout the landscape in this area. And fascinatingly enough, I also was doing research, speaking to people as well, about their experiences with these. And one of the things I found that was so compelling is that up until the early 20th century, no one called them hex signs. Does anybody know what they were called?
Book patterns.
Well, that's the term we use today, but they use the terms bluma and stana, because these types of designs have two general themes, as you can see. Ones that are celestial, that look like stars, which is where the word stana comes from in the Pennsylvania Dutch dialect. And then you'll also hear the word bluma, of course, meaning flowers. So you have flowers and stars. Prior to that, no one was calling them hex signs. And of course, you can see these particular designs up here fall into the celestial category. And you can also find a variety of them that are more curvilinear, have petals, things that resemble flowers. And there's also, of course, ambiguity, because some of them have attributes that could be seen as perhaps both. And what I find in general is that the area south of the Blue Mountains and just over the Blue Mountains, there's a high concentration of celestial designs. And if you move further east into Northampton County, stretching down to Bucks County, you find a tremendous amount of curvilinear designs that look a little bit more like flowers. Those two areas have names, of course, in the sense that there's the concentration at the Blue Mountains and then the Red Hills, which is the area that extends down the Saucon Valley. So you see these two particular trends. And of course, through this type of diversity of design that you find in the landscape, there have been a variety of different meanings and intentions placed on these throughout the years. And there still really is kind of, to this day, no one truly accepted answer to what do they mean, where do they come from. I will give you my insights on this tonight, but I also encourage you to be able to explore the ones that you've heard. Maybe as you grew up, you probably heard some stories and things of that nature. I find all those stories to be very valuable because they help to texture our cultural experience of the barns in our area. Now, this particular barn is located at the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University, and this is typical of what you'd see for a mid-19th century barn in Berks County. The vast majority of the barns that are decorated are from this time period. However, some of the earliest ones I'll show you tonight date back to the late 18th century. You'll notice that this particular barn is typical of the bank barns that you find in this area. This style of barn is often referred to as a Pennsylvania barn by cultural geographers, specifically referring to the fact that this type of barn was developed here in Pennsylvania. from European prototypes, particularly those from the Swiss. There are two features that identify a Pennsylvania barn, because of course not all barns in Pennsylvania are called Pennsylvania barns. Go figure that one out. But technically this one has two features you can see pretty readily. First of all, that very decorative edge that you can see in the shadow below it is a feature called a forebay. And the forebay is an overhang that usually consists of about 5 feet that shields the front stable walls on the lower level from the elements. And this is typically the area that has large expanses of wooden siding that are decorated. On many of the earliest barns, you'll find that there are stone walls surrounding the gables and also the rear, but in the very front, you'll see this large, veritable canvas, so to speak, that artists could embellish with symmetrical arrangements of stars, embellishments such as arches over doors and windows, as well as decorative edges along the bottom of the forebay. What you can't see in this image is the second feature that identifies a Pennsylvania barn, and that is the bank. You notice that the landscape slopes ever so slightly as you go around the one side of the stone gable there. If you were to look at the back of this particular barn, you would see that there is a sloped ramp that allows second-story access with wagons. And these two features help to identify a Pennsylvania barn